guys, in this episode, you're going to meet Rashawn Sanchez. Now, she has taken relationships by the balls and is going to share with us some of the most incredible tips and tricks for having beautiful, long-lasting relationships and learning to be comfortable in yourself and loving yourself so you can love and have incredible relationships, learning to not be scared of communication and other things going on. But we're going to dive deep in this topic. I know there's a lot of emotional charge behind this, so I'm excited. Let's go. Let's talk about relationships, sex, and how it evolves around your world. Hi, welcome to the Plug Into Your Life podcast. I have Rashawn Sanchez here. So excited to dive into this topic about relationships and sex, and everyone's so scared to talk about it, but it's one of the most important fundamental things in humankind. And looking really forward to diving into this and how you're serving people with this huge topics. And you're also on a game show podcast of Game of Love. I would call it a game show, but I think love is kind of like this dance of a game. And so anyways, thanks for being on here.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so before we get into all these amazing things you're doing now, what was your life like before you got into relationships, and how did it transform into that?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey for sure. My background is in treasury and high-risk liquid assets for commercial, federally chartered financial institutions across the US.
Wow.
And I loved my work for a really long time. I loved helping different companies do different things and having the access to help banks figure out what to do with the liquid assets that they were managing and how to engage deeper in industries that are considered high risk in the financial world, because it's one thing to have a dream as a business owner, and it's another not to be able to get a bank account or the financing you need to get going. And so it was amazing to be a part of that process. And I love my work and I was well paid for it. It was great. And then the pandemic hit. And in 2019, I had founded a skincare company with a business partner, and we were launching the company amidst COVID. And companies were scrambling to figure out how to pay their employees. And my work hours turned into 100-hour weeks. And I had 2 kids that were home full-time remote learning. And I was launching a company at the same time. And I was drowning. I was just drowning. And so I made the really difficult decision to leave this amazing corporate career that paid an obscene amount of money behind, and to just take some time off. So I resigned from that position at the end of 2020. My last day was December 31st of 2020. And I walked away from that knowing that I had to take some space and some time to figure out what was going to be next for me. And I spent the first 6 months of 2021 just kind of trying to figure out what that was going to look like. I did some consulting for some friends and kept running my other company, getting that up off the ground and trying to get my kids through school. And June rolled around. My parents wanted to see my kids, so I threw them on a plane and flew them down to Texas so that they could go hang out with my family. And I drove myself back home from the airport, and I got into my bed and I didn't get back out for 3 weeks. I had a full-on breakdown. And it was life-changing for a number of reasons. But it really was that moment of awakening that for me was this realization that I could continue going through life just surviving, or I could choose to actually live. Because though I didn't want to be here and I really struggled with that darkness in a really big way, I knew I also didn't actually want to die. And I don't think a lot of people will maybe necessarily be able to understand that, but if you've ever really stood on the edge of your own existence, that'll make a lot of sense. That feeling of not wanting to be here in this reality, in this existence, but also not wanting to end your life. So when I came out of that, when I could get back out of bed eventually, when that happened and I was able to breathe semi-normally, I just made a decision to change my life. And a big part of that was just pursuing anything that I felt like I would get genuine joy from. And I have a very good friend whom I love dearly, who's hosted this Game of Love podcast for years. She was about to hit 100 episodes and was shaking it up for the new season. And so I just threw out an idea, like, what do you think of a co-host and what do you think of me? And we have had an amazing time together, creating and sharing and having genuine conversations about the feminine and the masculine, and building relationships, creating sisterhood, how to prioritize your own pleasure, and just opening the doors to different perspectives and ideas and satisfying curiosity.
Oh, I love all of that. And you brought up a few little nuggets in there I'd hope to unpack. So I think, especially with COVID, there seems to have been like this little cloud that kind of hovered over people's lives. I myself went through this time period where I just, it wasn't like a financial bottom because I was very successful, had a business, but it was like that inside was just telling, like screaming out loud, saying, be happy, like do what you love doing, like, help other people and stuff like that. And I almost felt like trapped, like I was a victim to my own creation of life. Like it was like, I don't know, I was like in this glass house, like I could see out of it, but like I just couldn't get through. It was like there was something tying me down. And when I hear you talk about that place, that dark night of the soul where you felt like you just wanted it all to end, but you knew there was a light inside of you that wasn't the answer, but you just didn't know what the answer was. And I also was in that place, and I think hearing a lot of different stories, a lot of people have been in that place. And if someone's listening right now and they are there, what do you think uh like where do you think the connecting thread is between that feeling and what led up to that? Like, was it your attachment to things in life and the expectations? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so it's funny you say that when you talk about being in this glass house. I say this all the time to people, when they come to me with just general questions of, I know you've struggled in this, and I remind everybody that we are the architects of our own misery.
Mm.
We're creating this. So in the same sense of that big like main character energy that we talk about, right? Where we go and we're like, I am the author of my story, I am the writer of my movie, I'm the star of the show, right? In the same way we have the ability to create the great, we have the ability to create the bad. And so for me, that all tied directly back to the stories I had told myself. And it's really difficult. And I want to acknowledge this for anybody who's listening. It's very, very difficult to take responsibility for your own traumas. And I want to be really clear here. I know things happen to us as humans throughout the course of our lives that we do not have control over. And I'm not saying you're responsible for those things happening to you, but you're responsible for the story that you tell yourself from that moment on.
We'll say that
So
one more time.
you're responsible for the story you tell yourself from that moment on.
Mm.
So you can choose to say, this horrible thing happened, and I'm going to let it define the remainder of my existence. Every choice I make is going to be based on the trauma and the hurt that this thing caused me, that this person caused me. Or you can look at it and you say, I will never allow myself to experience that thing again. I will never put myself in the position to be hurt or used by that person again, because I'm raising my vibration. I am refusing to allow those types of individuals to be near me. I am cutting that out and I am setting my boundaries. For me, in that moment, when we talk about the dark night of the soul, I had to go back and look at each one of those traumas. And I had to rewrite the story around it because I had chosen to let those things define me. So I reached this point as I was coming back out of this where I realized I had no idea who I was. I could not answer that question. Who am I? I didn't know. I knew who I had been told to be. I knew the persona I had created. I knew everything about her, but I didn't know how much of her was actually real. She was me. And so I actually had to go back into that darkness I had to find my tether to this reality and go back into that so that I could answer that question of who I am. Because that's the key, in my opinion, is knowing this who you are and being able to sit comfortably in that, in the good and the bad, in the light and in the dark. That's I believe that's what gives us the opportunity to actually feel genuine joy in this existence.
Oh, gosh, that was like a beautiful poem, what you just said. I mean, I think a lot of people are scared to look at that, like not only, I had to learn this too, and I had to go through my past and like clear out these emotions that I was scared of. Because really, when I learned it wasn't the story. And by the way, science proved that 50% of your memories aren't even real, anyways. It's just your body was in an emotional state. When you took a snapshot of that, you developed a story that fit more lines of your emotions. And so when you start diving into those and your life, I think that was the hardest pill for me to swallow, was that I created this life. How can I not be happy? And then you almost feel like
Yeah,
crazy,
you do. You do. You're like, how am I not happy in this? I created all of this. Why am I not
Yeah.
happy? Because you didn't create it. In my case, I created it because I was told that's what I should create.
Yes, yes, yes.
I wasn't 100% positive it was even what I wanted.
Mm. And then you almost feel like guilt and shame over it because, we make these agreements when we're kids of this life that everyone says you're supposed to be pursuing. And then when you get into that rut of life, falling in line, to get out of that requires an extreme amount of energy and self-awareness and releasing of all that stuff from your past. And it's not about revisiting the stories, I don't think. I think it's more about just sitting with those emotions and then accepting that you are the creator of your life and you've placed these people and things in your life, whether you like it or not. You've attracted that person. I'm rambling now because I'm so passionate about this.
No.
They did a study, and this really kind of might unsettle people, but it is what it is. They had a rapist and a girl that was raped, and they put him in this room with it was like a couple hundred people. It was like this party environment type thing, and they were just testing to see what would happen. And sure enough, those two people that didn't know each other, didn't know what the study was or anything, ended up those two were talking and like interacting throughout the time out of all the people. And what they learned was that even in that type of situation, that horrific thing that people could never imagine, it's the person's emotions deep inside of themselves of how they value themselves, and they are attracting those people and things into their life. Whether and the law of attraction is so great that it will attract to you the very things that are deep inside of you, even if you feel like you don't want it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, very powerful stuff. I mean, you just nailed, 99% of the population of that aren't even aware what they're doing in their life. And then to get out of it, it requires you to accept everything as it is and to make changes. Oh
Yeah.
gosh, I love this stuff.
And that's the hardest part, is the acceptance. Because it is so easy to blame some innocuous moment in
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
some piece of history that you don't even remember clearly. It's simple. It's easy to do that. It's really, really hard to look at yourself and take responsibility for that. And the one thing that I had to discover, and I really like for the listeners thinking about this, and you think about going into the discovery of who you are, you know, you're going to want to focus on the positive. You're going to want to focus on well, I'm a thoughtful human.
Mm.
I'm caring, I'm loving, I'm compassionate, I'm intelligent, I'm humorous. You're going to want to focus on the positive, and those things are so important. They are. But you have to remember that you are also selfish. You are also toxic.
Mm.
You are also cruel and dismissive. Um, and these are not bad things. They're words that have negative connotations, but they're not bad things. And so digging into every aspect of you requires you to look at it through the lens of both the light and the dark that exists within that particular adjective, right? Because in order to understand and to really live and embody, because this is what this is about. If you're going to go down this hole, don't do it because you're trying to accomplish something. Do it because you truly want to embody all aspects of your being, because it's not going to be easy and it's not always going to be fun. But if you do it with the right intention, and do it with the sole intent of taking the light and the dark and integrating each piece of that into you, melding that together, letting them flow into one, really embracing the feminine. Remember, feminine lives through all of us, and the feminine is the darkness, and really allow that to flow and to connect in, and watch how it changes every aspect of your life. Your relationships change, your conversations change, the way you walk down the street changes. And it's because I believe in what I experienced was this entire reset that gave me a purpose to actually walk through this life. It made it worth it for some reason. Now, all of a sudden, it was like, I am capable of so much more that fits outside of the mold that is created within our capitalistic society, right? And I'm not saying that in a negative way. We live in the world we live in. We chose this reality for a reason. So I'm not knocking that, but you have to figure out how to exist outside of that, because that shell, that structure, it's not real and it could fall apart at any time. So if you lose that, then who are you?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And I feel like you almost unconsciously accept this mask that you've placed on yourself as you, right? But I almost feel like that's why it's so hard to change sometimes, because you've adopted this persona of yourself, but the true self is the awareness of that identity. It's the awareness, and um, when you become conscious and you choose to say, "Hey, I'm asking bigger questions now. I want to find out more about myself. I want to grow. I want to do more things." Yeah, you're right. It requires you to dive into, okay, someone's calling me a selfish prick or something. I don't know. Oh, it makes me so mad. How dare he? And you kind of, I'll just experience this on a business coach call. Somebody was having a problem with an email that they received, and they were very condescending. And he's like, well, do you think that some of that may be true? She's like, well, and kind of got irritated. But then after it sunk in a little bit, it's like, well, of course you're a little selfish. Of course you're like, those things don't, you're the one that's giving assignment to good, bad, right, wrong. The
Right?
truth is that it's just is. It's just a human being having an experience. And of
Having
course you
an
make mistakes.
experience,
Yeah,
right? And of course you're selfish.
of course.
This is the thing I'm always telling people, like, you are the star of your own movie. So your actions, all they have to do is align with your own integrity. Not that other person's, not their expectations, not what they want of you, not what they think you should be. You want to talk about the dirtiest word in the English language? It's should.
Mm.
It should. Should is not real.
Quit
Should,
shitting on yourself.
shitting on yourself. Should is absolute bullshit. Like that, it is
T-shirt.
the worst, because you say it should look like this, and the second it doesn't, now it's not right. What are you doing to yourself? And again, you're choosing to do that. You're choosing to create that definition. So it's like, yeah, I am selfish. But for me, that means that I prioritize my needs. I prioritize myself. I make sure that if I'm doing something, it's because it's in integrity and in alignment with who I am and what I want to be doing in that moment. If that means I don't want to come to a baby shower, it's not a bad thing. It means I'd rather spend my time elsewhere. I still send love and light. And we're creating these expectations of other people that they can't live up to, because we've decided they should act a certain way. And the second they don't, now our relationships are failing without communication and conversation, without compromise. And when I say relationships, I don't just mean our romantic ones or ones with our lovers. I mean our friendships, our family, our colleagues. it's like humans need other humans. We are social beings, and finding your community it shouldn't be as difficult as it is. But we have to acknowledge the fact that it is difficult to find your community, and it is hard because it's hard to come in and walk into a room and be 100% confident in who you are and sit with authenticity and integrity and know that people are going to love and be drawn to you because you exist in that energy. You still want to walk into a room and try and fit the energy of the room, or create or fit into this mold that they're creating, and you want to be seen as attractive, and so you're making these efforts, when the reality is if you just sat in comfort of who you are and walked into that room, you'd be the most attractive and magnetic soul in there. But it's hard to get to that point, because in order to get there, you have to be willing to claw yourself from the depths of hell. And I'm not going to say that that's everybody's experience, because what do I know? But I know it's mine. And I've talked to enough people to also know that there's a lot of us going through very, very similar journeys and awakenings at this moment.
Yeah, I'm definitely experiencing that, especially talking to so many people with transformative stories. Um, there's so much power and within inside of yourself. And I almost feel like the secret ingredient that I've been hearing is just the curiosity.
Yes.
You start sprinkling a little curiosity in your life, asking different questions, like, and not accepting everything that everyone's telling you or that you are telling yourself. And I don't know, so now you're involved with helping people with some of these realizations, especially around relationships. Um, what would you say, like, if someone's sitting there, and this is probably a lot of people, they're just uncomfortable with some relationship in their life, and it sounds like the first step would be to kind of take ownership of the relationship. What would you say would be some of the baby steps that somebody could take if they are wanting to make some changes or improve their relationships? What would you say a couple of nuggets might be?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Thank you. You're right. I think your first step is 100%. You need to pick up that mirror and really look in that. Because what you first need to identify for yourself is, where is the we're going to use the word unhappiness here, because I think that that's pretty blanket. So where is the unhappiness within the relationship actually sitting, right? So let's use an example of you're in a relationship, but the communication isn't at the level that you would like it to be at. This isn't a new dating thing where you're in a relationship, we're monogamous. But I don't hear from you often. Okay. And it sits in me. I'd like to talk to you every day. I hear from you kind of every other day. We've been dating for 6 months. It's time for the communication to increase. Okay. My first job would be to look in and understand where my discomfort around our communication is actually coming from. So, am I bothered by this because I'm just really into you? And I've got those wonderful lusty crushy feelings, and I just want to like talk to you and send you gifts and send you songs all the time, but I don't yet feel that we have the connection that would allow me to initiate that, and so I'm kind of holding back, and you're catching that energy, because let's be cognizant of the energy we're putting out. Is it bothering me because I feel like your attention is elsewhere? So is this kind of triggering my anxious attachment? Which is much work as I've done to move into beautiful, secure attachment. I'm still an anxious human. I still have my traumas despite all the work I've done, and I still fall back into anxious attachment when I feel like somebody I'm really into is like distancing. So I'm a human, right? So once I identify what the problem is, then I can come to you in a really open way that states, I would really like for us to communicate more often. I just really love talking to you. I'm really into you. I love when your name pops up on my phone, and just hearing from you makes me so happy. Would you be open to communicating more? What's your preferred communication style? Like maybe you're not big into texting, and so you don't even think about it. Doesn't mean you don't like me, right? It just means you're not a big texter. You'd rather call me every night and have a phone conversation. What a beautiful thing. So this is an opportunity, I think, to remember that the discomfort within a relationship first lies within yourself. So identify what that is, because then you can go to your partner and have that very open conversation using the I statements, because it is an I issue. And not an issue is a negative thing. Keep in mind that's still fine, but it is an I thing. And then hopefully you're dating or having a sexual relationship with a person who understands and hears you and can communicate back their own needs. And then from there we can find compromise. It all comes down to communication. And that's if you want to move into some kinky stuff, or if you want to talk more, or if you want a weekly date night, or if you want to have sleepovers. Like, if you have a need in a relationship, say your need and trust you've chosen well. And if you haven't, release that person and move on and choose differently in a new relationship, because you deserve someone who can hear you.
Ooh, yes, yes, yes. And I think so before someone gets to that place where, okay, I understand it's communication, and when I used to have resentments towards people, a trusted friend of mine would be like, "Why don't you just go talk to them instead of having all this emotion inside?" Which I was choosing the emotion because I'm addicted to cortisol or whatever. But
We all get our
you
hits
know,
in different ways. No judgment.
yeah. But when I actually would go talk to this person because I want to release this, you
Yeah.
know, negative thing going on, I would find out that that person, their perspective over the problem was way different than the problem that I was creating in my own mind.
Mm-hmm.
But to reach that place of knowing that, okay, communication's big. I had a marriage that didn't make it because I believe it was a lot of communication, um, on my part, especially. But before someone gets to that place where they understand that, it's not so easy, I feel like, to step into that role of, okay, I'm all of a sudden going to have communication now. I feel like men, especially, are scared of the emotions wrapped around stuff like that, which usually leads, I think, cheating, stuff like that, because, they're scared of the emotions. They would rather externalize that stuff to get the rush that they need, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
do you think like the starting point would be to make changes towards better communication? Like, is there any type of tools or maybe like little tricks that people could start doing on a daily basis to kind of encourage that habit of communicating?
Yeah, I think so for sure. Um, Start by communicating with yourself.
Ah,
So I don't think a lot of people are really comfortable communicating with themselves. And that can be done through meditation if you're comfortable with it. There's wonderful guided meditations. If you're new to meditating, I highly recommend just search guided meditation on Spotify or YouTube, right? Journaling is another really good way. So for me, it was very difficult to have those hard conversations with myself, because again, I had to take ownership of a lot of bullshit that I had told myself that was not real. I had created all of my own issues. And so I started by writing myself a letter. And my only rule was I had to be kind to myself, because I have a tendency to be incredibly mean to myself, or I have in the past. Thankfully, it's gotten significantly better, but I've been outright cruel to myself. So I had to start writing letters, and they had to be kind. But I also had to acknowledge, I'm going to use the word mistake here, but I want to be really clear. There's no mistakes. There just is. Okay. But in this example, it's important to use this word. So I had to acknowledge the mistakes I had made along the way. So when you don't have whatever support system or structure that you need in your youth that doesn't exist, that kind of like cultivates these stories that we tell ourselves as we try and process stuff on our own when we're young, um, it leads down the completely like wrong path, right? So you make this choice and you tell yourself this story, and now all of a sudden, because your dad has a new family, you're not loved. And the only way to be loved is if you're perfect. The way to be perfect is to do all of these things. And then one day you wake up and you're almost about to be 37 and on the brink of a freaking mental breakdown after divorcing your husband and just all of the things, right? So it's like, talk to yourself first, because if you can acknowledge to yourself the mistakes that you've made along the way in a kind way, then it creates that door to have more conversations within your life. Because you are now approaching it from a perspective of, I have a need. This is what that need is. Are you able to meet this need? Yes or no? Can we compromise? Right? So it like creates this opportunity here, and then you come in and determine what that will actually look like with your partner or with your friend or with your colleagues or with your coworkers. And I know it's scary. I know it's terrifying to think about expressing your needs, because what happens if you express your needs and they don't hear you? You love this person. Think about that. You love this person, and you go to them and you say, I need this from you. I need more affection. And they say, I'm tapped out on affection. I can't give you any more. And you're left in that moment being like, but I have a need and you're my partner and I've chosen you. And now this need is not being met. And but I want you, but you can't do this. And so now I don't know what to do. So I don't know who to talk to. So I'm going to go seek that affection elsewhere. Right? That's how we get into these cheating situations. And I want to be very clear. This is not poly or ENM, ethically non-monogamous relationships where you've had a conversation. This is cheating. Okay. You go down that path, you choose to make that decision. Right? Now you've hurt yourself. You've hurt the person you've chosen to have this affair with. You've hurt your partner. When really what that conversation should have been in that moment was, okay, what could I need more affection? I understand you're tapped out. Can we meet somewhere in the middle? This is really important to me. This is why this is important to me. If you've done the work, you understand the why, then you can explain your need. And if they still cannot meet you there, remember that even though you chose this person at one time and you believe that they were the correct person for you, you always reserve the right to change your mind. You are not locked into any decision. You can choose to go left right now, get halfway down the path and be like, no, and off-road it to the right. You can do whatever you want. And if a relationship is no longer serving you and your needs are not being met, and remember, communication with, my dog is shaking. She woke up from her nap. Excuse me. Remember that communication within your partnerships, the relationships you've chosen to cultivate in your life, should be simple. They should be even, open and even and free flowing. Open and even and free flowing.
Open and even and free flowing.
If your relationships are a struggle, if they create conflict in your life, if you don't know how to talk to somebody, if you're nervous to bring up a subject, whether that be, I need to hear from you more, or I want you to put it in my butt, like, I don't care what the conversation is. If you're struggling to bring that up to somebody that you've developed an intimate connection with, that connection is not valid and it is not as strong as you think it might be. And that's an opportunity for you to grow it, because you shouldn't have to hesitate to express your needs to somebody that you share love with.
Oh yeah, and I want to open that up just a little bit more. And I know there's a lot of emotionally charged beliefs and perceptions over this topic of yeah. But before we get into that, I just want to say, guys, if this is resonating with you and you just want to reach out and find out more about how she can help you guys, I want to put the link down below for her Instagram and other links, but go to Beers and Braziers. Is that how you pronounce that? Yeah.
Beers and Braziers.
Yes. And check this out. Reach out and get going on making your relationships better. But, oh, man, I believe that unconditional love is no conditions, right? If I'm going to step into something and let's say I'm 23 years old, 25, 28, something like that, and I step into a relationship and I believe at that moment that this is the right thing to do for myself. I can see myself forever, which is really a scary word with someone. Okay, I'm all in, and I got all these emotions and it's the right thing to do based on society. And I signed a contract and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
You reach this place where all of a sudden you're not happy or fulfilled. Maybe you did go through communication and you did try to make this work. That belief that you can't choose a different choice, right? Your body completely goes over a complete restoration. What is it, like every couple days all of your cells are like renewed, like changed, and your skin and all that stuff. I don't know the exact time frame, but if you're changing that much, I feel like you have to allow yourself to change. And if the other person isn't going to or doesn't want to, I think being unconditional love towards each other, of understanding, hey, you know what, we both changed. Unfortunately, you grow together, you grow apart, and looks like we've both have different needs now. I want you to have the best experience of life possible, and I want to support you in whatever that is. But I don't think it should be together anymore. I
Mhm.
think that is so scary for people because of the addiction to needing someone to, I don't even know what that is. It's like a validation or like a, you know, it's like, I don't know where that even comes from, but I think you're nailing it on the head with all of that, and how important it is to communicate. And yeah, oh,
Well, and remember that we are constantly changing and growing and evolving. And we're all on beautiful spiritual journeys, regardless of what your beliefs are, right? We're here for something. And whether you believe you are here for a specific purpose or you believe you are just here to breathe in oxygen, you are still here. And you get to choose the experience that you have. And I think if you go into anything, relationships, jobs, businesses, opportunities, hobbies, if you go into it with the understanding that things last for seasons, then it allows you to enjoy that experience that much more because it takes the pressure of forever off of it. Now, your season could be 60 years. You don't know.
yeah.
You don't know, but it becomes this opportunity to wake up every single day and choose that person. If you go into it and you think, well, now we've signed our contract, so we are together forever. This is what it's going to be. Buckle up, sister. We are the ball and chain. We are in this together. If that is your attitude, then guess what happens when it gets shitty? You think to yourself, not going to work on this. Where are they going to go? We're together forever. We have a mortgage, kids, retirement accounts, investments. I did it. I got a divorce after 10 years. And the way you described that conversation was beautiful. I asked my ex-husband for a divorce by turning off the sink water, putting down the hand towel, turning around and looking at him and saying, I want a divorce. No fight, no infidelity, just two people not on the same path anymore, passing each other like ships in the night. And me coming to this realization that I was 32 years old. I had a whole life ahead of me. I had a whole life ahead of me. And did I deserve to find somebody that was going to love me passionately and intensely that I could love in the same way? Yes, I did.
Mm.
Yes, I did. And I had kids, and it was this thing for me of also being like, they deserve that example too, because I believe that love, when done correctly, can change every aspect of your being. And it doesn't matter if it lasts for 6 months or if it lasts for 60 years. Love, when done right, can change everything. And we deserve this. Humans, we deserve this. Our souls deserve this. This collective, this world we're in deserves that, because when you experience that type of connection and that type of love, and again, this can be in friendships and within family, and this can be romantic and sexual as well. This, when you experience that, you spread that light, and it hits other people around you, and it affects their energy, and it makes them want to seek the same for themselves. And you are an example to somebody. Every person listening to this right now is an example to somebody. There is somebody in their life that looks at them and says, I wish that was me. I wish that was me. I wish I could do what they do. I wish I had their energy. I wish I had their devotion to fitness or their love of philanthropy or their commitment to their religion. Like, there is somebody who looks at you and says that. So if for nothing else, live your life in a bold way, because you have no idea who you're impacting. None. And choosing to live less than that will just, why? You're just hurting yourself you're not hurting yourself. Hurts you. You're not punishing other people. You're choosing to live in this misery. You're choosing to create this yourself. You're choosing to lie to yourself about what you look like and what you sound like and how intelligent you are and how impactful you are and how attractive, and for what?
Yeah.
You're amazing. Every single person listening to this right now is, may I curse? Is that okay?
Oh yes, be
Okay.
yourself, please.
Everybody listening to this right now is fucking epic. Every person has a gift. Everybody is powerful. Every single person listening to this right now is a light in this world with the ability to make major impactful change. Every single one of them. Believe it, own it, and then walk through this life with that energy and watch you change the fucking world.
Yeah.
Just watch it happen. And I know I've been there. I've been in that moment of like, I know this can be more, but I don't know how to make it happen. And it can be really confusing when I say, just choose differently. If your instinct is to go left, I want you to go right. If you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror and you go to say, I hate my body, I want you to say, I have amazing tits. I want you to really look at them. I want you to look at them through the eyes of a lover. I want you to look at your body the way a sexual partner would. Put that mindset on and change that. Or if you think to yourself, I'm not going to chase that promotion because I don't have all 10 of the requirements. I only have 8. So I've got no, hit apply. Because why not? Why wouldn't you do that for yourself? Remember, the worst thing that can happen is that somebody tells you no, or they tell you not yet, or they say you need a little bit more. Cool. You have nothing to lose for trying, nothing to lose for just going out and pursuing what you want. In fact, the word try shouldn't even be in your vocabulary. Just fucking do it.
Yeah.
Do it. What happens if you fail? I have failed. How many times I have failed? My God.
Yeah.
I love failing because then I get to create a whole new version of me. Oh, look, new story. Great.
Oh, the greatest things in my life were my biggest failures, whatever that failure even is. It's just an experience, you know, when I had my near-death experience and I realized that this isn't it. And 100 years from now, I'm sorry to say this, well, I'm not going to put a time frame on it, but everyone's dying. You're going to die, right? When you're dead, none of this stuff that you're worried about is going to matter at that point. No one's going to remember anything about this. And so, what's the biggest risk? I would think to myself that I push forward and I make and force this thing that doesn't feel right to me, that we're gonna be okay for what? Like, what's a bigger risk? You not being happy and you laying on your bed about to die, realizing that, my God, if I just would have made a different choice, so I could have been happy my whole life, regardless of what everyone else is judging. I've had people tell me I'm going to hell for some of the decisions I'm making. Like, what? Like, get rid of that stuff. Become happiness. Choose your own experience and do things out of love, right? Like, I was so scared of my emotions and what people were thinking and reacting to me that I chose that over my own happiness, right?
Yeah.
At the end, no one else is going with me. It's just me and God.
It's you.
Oh, be happy, choose happiness, and make decisions off of love in your life. You don't have to hurt. You know, I've made choices where I wanted to do things for myself and I ended up hurting people because of it. But you can choose to say, I'm doing this for love of myself and I want to be the best person of me. And if you don't want that for me, that's not love. So I'm choosing love. I'm going to do this. And then like for me, I had to surround myself with people that were supportive and encouraging and, you know, wanting the best version of myself. Right. Oh, it's hard to do it by yourself. So I recommend like reaching out to people like yourself if someone's listening, or find a support group or find someone that wants
Seriously.
good. Yeah.
Find a community in your area, find your community, and really, especially to you know, your masculine listeners, I think there are beautiful circles of feminine that welcome all aspects of femininity if you are trying to connect into the divine and what that looks like. And really, I personally know so many. And then when I look at groups that are created for the masculine, that create safe space for the masculine to talk and to feel and to open themselves up and create that safe masculine space for them to do so, where they're surrounded by other strong masculine energy, that those are few and far between. And the men that I've met throughout the course of my awakening over the last 6 years, and really in the last year and a half since I last year, really since I broke down, the more connected in with their masculine they are, the safer the space they create. And so what happens in those moments is, in a world where everything feels very chaotic, and if you're affected by energies or you have empathic tendencies in any way, it can be incredibly overwhelming to surround yourself with healthy, evolved, connected masculine energy. It changes the dynamic of your own flow, if that makes sense. And so even as a single woman out there in the world dating, I'm very consciously aware of the masculine energy that I surround myself with and what I'm looking for. And I'm very selective about dates that I choose to accept because of the type of energy that I feel safest with. And it is those men that take the time to find community for themselves, and to figure out how to feel their goddamn feelings. And I want to be really clear here. I didn't know how to feel my feelings. I was a freaking fortress of like nothing got through here. And now I feel every feeling and I love it. But for a long time I didn't. And I shut down because I felt abandoned at one point in my life. Men shut down because they're told to shut down.
Yeah.
And it is so fucked up. It is so messed up. But by connection within that masculine, then what that does is it allows you to attract in feminine, and that divine feminine, then she just opens up her space as well. And now you're safe and protected. And so you create this flow of energy between the two of you. And I am, of course, speaking as a straight woman here. So I want to be really cognizant that everybody possesses feminine and masculine energy, and everybody is higher at one point than another, like just so everybody knows it's all the same here. But it allows you to connect and like meld those two energies in. And then when you want to talk about a season that lasts 60 years, it's right there. It's in that moment of understanding where you have created space that allows your partner to be authentically themselves. You hear when they speak, you take action on their needs, and you create that safe space and safe container. So when you think about issues that arise because communication is not there, or sexual compatibility has fallen off, or their interest level isn't there, you have to stop and ask yourself, where have we lost connection within our energies, within our souls? And I know that's super spiritual and woo-woo. And a lot of people, I don't think your listeners here are necessarily going to be rolling their eyes, but a lot of people do at me. But we're talking about the melding of beings. We have these beautiful bodies that we get to inhabit that can experience immense amounts of pleasure. And how lucky are we to have that? But we're serving something deeper. And so finding that connection is imperative. So to all your listeners, find a group or a community, a book club, something that really resonates with you and you feel heard and seen and you have a connection. So when shit goes down, when you're having a bad day or something happened at work, or you and your girlfriend just broke up, or you're having a huge fight and you're worried it's going to be the end, you have people to go to who live in your same energy and can help support you in that.
God, yes. I love all of that so much. And I just want to resonate in that for a second because I really think that there's such a fear behind relationships. Oh man, someday I see relationships 101 in schools. Like this stuff, like if children and young people would just kind of understand the dynamic between this. And I don't think it's the vows or, the agreements that we or I don't think it's the marriage or the relationships that are wrong. I think it's the agreements that we believe we're making when we come into those things, not allowing the other person to change and adapt and mold and being curious and making time to have real conversations without charging emotion around it, like expectations and how I believe you should be acting, or I'm shooting all over myself, you know. Um, oh, just love all that stuff. So, communication, doing things where you're communicating with yourself first, learning, what these emotions are. I remember when I was a kid, I felt like I had to bottle up that stuff and I couldn't share stuff. I was so scared to share about emotions that I would start crying just because I couldn't even talk the words.
Mm-hmm.
And, and then people grow up, they get into relationships and they carry all those beliefs into that with them. And then when you feel trapped, it's a nightmare because you feel like this is the person that's supposed to love and care and I should be able to communicate with, but that's the one person I can't communicate with.
Yeah.
Very, very challenging. But on the other side of that is beautiful understanding and learning and experience. And, just keep taking one step forward, talking to other people, listening to stuff like this, reaching out on YouTube and just discovering yourself, talking to someone that you trust or even a therapist if you need to.
Oh yeah. I recommend therapy for everybody. Everybody should be in therapy. Yep.
Now, I know we're getting to the top of the hour. Oh my gosh, I feel like I could go on forever. I can't believe it's been that long. Um, but I want to also tie in sex because
Yeah.
I think that's a huge, huge, uh, like a humankind like topic that's looked at in so many different emotional charges. I keep saying that for some reason, but there's like so much energy wrapped around words. But I feel like in relationships, especially, sex is so powerful. You're talking about the life force energy, And I feel like people get trapped in that energy. But if harnessed properly, I mean, there's tantrics, there's all kinds of things where you can use the energy of a relationship in a sexual way without the actual action being the main focus, but turning it into curiosity and fun and being open about things. And if you're in a relationship where you almost feel scared to explore, or like maybe you have these deep desires that you feel like you can't share, or maybe you feel shame or guilt from it,
Mhm.
what kind of suggestions do you have for opening that topic up and making that more of a normal thing in a relationship?
Definitely. I think that's a really great question. So there's really two levels here within that. So if you are somebody who you're finding yourself scared to express your needs or your desires or your fantasies because they are centered around trauma, and you may not know what that trauma is, and that's okay. But if you feel that like there's trauma there or a deep sense of shame, talk to a professional. Okay. Find yourself a trauma specialist, a sex coach, somatic sex coaches. That's SOMATIC, somatic. I would highly recommend they do specific trauma work both within the psyche and the body. Start there because you're working those things that center around trauma and intense, deep shame. Those are centered around something that you should not feel that you have to overcome yourself, because they're deeply rooted and you deserve to get the help to help you really go into them, because you're going to want to tether yourself to the reality when you dive into those. So I want to be really clear on that. Now, if we're talking about a situation where you struggle to talk about sex, not because you have deep rooted trauma associated with it, but because you were never taught to do so, or you did once express your needs and a partner shamed you, like we've all been there. Every every vulva owner listening to this right now dated some guy in college who went down on her and made a weird face because he didn't know what he was doing, and it just created all sorts of issues in her head, and now she's convinced herself that she doesn't like having her pussy eaten. And the reality is she probably very much does. She just hasn't had a partner that's been willing to create a space of comfort and safety for her. Okay. So it happens a lot to vulva owners. It's a common thing that we all deal with. So you're not alone in that journey, my friend. But having that conversation, like really sitting down and allowing yourself to say, this is what feels good to me, and I'm interested in taking it to the next level. Now, we're going to rewind just a little bit here. How do you know what feels good to you? Either a partner's tried something, maybe that you were open to trying and you enjoyed it, or maybe you've watched it in a video, or you heard it. Audio porn is huge right now, so maybe you heard it in a nice audio porn that you were listening to, and that piqued your interest a little bit, or maybe you found it through your own self-discovery, by actually physically touching and experiencing yourself. all three of these things are beautiful opportunities to learn more about what you like. And then it's important for you to take that knowledge and go to your partner. So we're going to use you as an example because you're staring me in the face right now. So I'm very open. I hope you and your listeners don't mind that. So if I were to come to you and say, I really preferring being in sub-dom relationships, and I'm a brat who's looking for a pleasure dom specifically, do you feel like that's something that you could engage in?
Wait, could you clarify sub-dom? Maybe
Oh yeah, so within the BDSM community, sorry, yes, my apologies for not my show. In the dom community, in the BDSM community, you can have dom sub relationships. That is a dominant and a submissive. The role of dominant or submissive can be played by either partner. It's not identity specific in any form. It's just a personal preference. Somebody who is in that dominant role would be in control of the situation. A pleasure dom specifically is somebody who derives intense sexual pleasure from providing pleasure to their partner. But it can be a situation where it is forced orgasms, multiple as many a person can take. They could be tied up to receive those. It can get pretty deep, and we don't have the time for me to go into that, but that is like a dom sub relationship. And so I like to be in a submissive role. That's very important to me. Well, if you're not comfortable with that, if being in a dominant role and taking that control and being given that power, one, I'd have to trust you in order to do that in a very big way. Let's assume we've gotten past that point. But then we have this conversation and you were like, it doesn't sit well with me. I'm not comfortable. I'm not going to be comfortable choking you. I'm not going to be comfortable doing that. That is an opportunity for you and I to then converse about what you would be comfortable with. Because now it's my personal preference. It's not the world you live in. It's my personal preference. And then you're saying, well, here's what I could do. Then it comes back to me to say, oh, all right, well, let's try that. Let's try it and see if it doesn't push your comfort boundaries, because you don't want to do that. So let's try it and see how you feel. And then am I also deriving pleasure from that? And now we're having this conversation back and forth, right? We're conversing. You're communicating to me your own personal needs in terms of sexual satisfaction. And I'm trying new things for you. Now, everybody is going to have their no-goes. Everybody is going to have a no. Hard stop, will not do it. Absolutely. If that thing that you are asking for is something that I just cannot do, it's a no for me. But for you, it falls into a fetish category, which a fetish is something that you need to experience to be turned on or experience sexual pleasure. So you need this thing. And I'm saying, I can't do this thing. Then what we've hit, in my personal opinion, is a complete impasse. And at that point, it's necessary that we split and part ways. Because I'm not able to provide the thing that you need to ensure your sexual pleasure is being met. And in a relationship where we've committed to one another from a sexual intimacy perspective, that is something that you want your partner to take very seriously, to care very much about your pleasure. And to remember that your pleasure it is fine that your pleasure is a priority. That is a good thing. Your partner should want your pleasure to be a priority. They should want you to prioritize your pleasure, because you are responsible for your orgasm. If I want to come, I sure as shit better make sure you know how to make that happen. And that happens through communication and talking and a little to the left and a little to the right, and use two fingers and try. It's all of that communication and that freedom. And what worries me is that there are so many individuals out there who are experiencing sexual interactions that are not serving them, and they are not providing them pleasure. And they're doing so out of some sense of obligation, or like they have a responsibility to do it. And you're missing a whole aspect of human bliss by doing that to yourself. The pleasure we're capable of experiencing within our bodies, I believe that is our gift from the universe to deal with traffic and taxes and politics and rogue governments and pandemics. Like, take advantage of the pleasure you can create in your own body and let your partner know how to do that. If you are with somebody who does not care about your orgasm, please exit that relationship, because there are I'm telling you, there will be a line around the block that wants to make sure you are having orgasm
There's
after orgasm.
billions of people.
Billions of people. Billions of people, and everybody. And I know this is like, people get caught in, I'll have these conversations and I'll say, well, I'm not conventionally attractive, or I don't fit social standards. And so maybe it's easy for you, but it's not going to be easy for me. And it's like, no, 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 no. If you are intentionally dating, it's not easy for anybody, because the number of conscious humans who are out there who've done the work and are actually looking to commit at this level, they're not the easiest to find. So it's already difficult. But additionally, your beauty is held by the person who views you.
Yes.
So look in the mirror and find your beauty. That goes back to find the sexiness in your body, find the attractiveness in yourself. The second you look at yourself through the eyes of a lover, line around the block.
Yeah.
You're so magnetic, you got to beat them off the fly swatter.
None of this stuff is woo-woo. It's all these things that we're talking about are scientifically proven. And I think you kind of nailed it. I know we're getting to the top of the hour now, but
I'm good on time.
Yeah. I just have to, well, anyways, I think there's this thing of, okay, I'm seeing what you're talking about, and there's this great communication. I need to talk about sex, but now the other person, the way they're acting, I can't control it, and it's this awkward thing now. But I think if you started within, like we talked about in the beginning, like you've got to start spending time with yourself and be comfortable with yourself. If you're having a hard time doing that, find someone like a therapist or a friend or someone like you or me, or find somebody that can guide you, that's already been down the process of self-discovery, of loving yourself, which, by the way, that's how I've seen people miraculously heal, from paying attention to the emotions inside and becoming comfortable with yourself and letting go of your attachment to how the world says you should be. Through meditation is a great way to do that. Once you access that level of, I feel comfortable with myself, now you don't need anything else outside of yourself to be happy. You don't need the dollar or the toy or the person. That's freedom to me. And when you can't have this, okay, I'm just expecting my whole relationship to be perfect now, and let's do some kinky shit, like, it starts with yourself. Am I right?
It does. And remember, and you said this earlier, so when you do that work within yourself and you raise your confidence, your vibration, your energetic level, you don't attract people that are vibrating down here. Okay. Yeah. So you start to attract.
Proven, by the way. This isn't woo-woo.
You're raising your vibration, you're feeling good, and you're in a relationship, and you start to see a lot of strife start to come up and struggle and conflict in that relationship because you've grown and you're raising your vibration and they're still chilling down here. This is a situation where, and this is the hard thing, people are going to fight back on this, I understand, but you have to cut that cord.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if you remain tethered, if you're here and they're here and you remain tethered to them, they're going to pull your ass right back down. Okay.
Yeah.
Relationships where you're vibrating here and they're vibrating here and you're flowing and communicating, you're not going to run into that scenario you just described from a relationship perspective. You're not. And I know we've all been in relationships where we're like, why haven't I found that relationship yet? I've had struggle and strife and conflict in all of them. People change and they grow. When you start to notice a slip, pause, pull it back up, address the issue, have the conversation. The only person you're hurting by not having the conversations is yourself. Just you. That's it. That's the only person you're hurting. And it's the only person you're responsible to. So why are you waking up every morning looking at yourself in the mirror and being like, fuck you? I'm not doing shit for you today, man. No, talk about it. Your girlfriend's not talking to you. Have a conversation. Your boyfriend's playing games. Talk to them about it. Yeah. Your partner is making you feel unseen and unheard. Press pause on that. Say to them, I do not feel heard. I've expressed this to you multiple times. I'm concerned that we're not communicating well, or what I'm saying isn't being heard. How do we address this issue here? Because I'm still really struggling with it. And it's affecting my happiness within our relationship. Say the thing. Say the thing. We are so scared to tell people how we feel and what we're thinking. But if you say, it is affecting my happiness in this relationship,
Ooh.
I am taking responsibility for the fact that my happiness in this relationship is being affected. Can we please talk about this? Because I'd like to resolve it. Is there compromise here? Say the thing. You want to break up? Say it. You want to move across the country? Say it. You want to bring a third in? Say it. Because why not? Why not? You think somebody's going to show up and be your advocate? Nobody's going to show up and be your advocate.
Holy
Sorry.
shit balls. This is like, oh, this is like gold. Yeah, starting with yourself, being comfortable and being happy with yourself, which may take a lot of work, but to fix a relationship, you can't fix anybody or anything. You can't change anybody, right? Like, and I used to get hung up on the other person, any friendship or anything, telling me, "Oh, you hurt me." Really? How did I hurt you? Like, yes, there are physically abusive things, and that's a whole nother topic. But in the same sense, you really can't hurt anybody. It's if I was speaking French right now and I was cursing you out, telling you what a piece of shit you were and all this stuff, and you're ugly and all this stuff, but you didn't understand the words that were coming out of my mouth, it wouldn't affect you, right? So the person's still saying it and doing it, and their actions are still there, but it's my adoption of how a word is expressing itself, and then I'm internalizing it because those emotion chemicals only last a few seconds. So everything past that, I'm choosing that emotion, and now I am simply hurting myself, taking a poison pill, expecting the other person to die.
Mhm.
And when you detach from that, realizing that you are the one in charge of your life, you are the main character, you're the actor, you are the head honcho, connected to God, and your purpose is to be happy, fulfilled, and help others. You feel depressed and drugged down because you're not fulfilling that purpose. So, hearing this, love yourself, give attention to yourself, and then speak up about what you really want to be happy and
Mhm.
hold that as your anchor, right?
Hold that as your
Oh,
anchor. And in expressing yourself, if I came to you and I said, this action really hurt me, I have every right to say that, but that's it. From that point, what I need to make sure I do not do is create a whole story around that action that now means that's how all my relationships are going to go in the future, right? And for your perspective, if you truly did something that genuinely hurt another person, you offer that apology. Right? Intent is regardless, right? You offer that apology, and then you yourself say, okay, now I didn't intend to hurt them. I recognize that I did. I offered a genuine apology, and you yourself move on and correct the behavior so that in the future, whatever action, whatever trauma that existed inside you that made you hurt that other person, because we're going to hurt people in our lives. We're human. You're going to hurt other people. When
yeah.
you hurt other people, you apologize for it when it's actually needed. That's why apologies, this I'm sorry every time we turn around, is just the most asinine thing. They mean nothing. You devalue them every time you throw out an apology for nothing, right?
I've been there.
So
I've did
be
that.
prepared. We all have.
Yeah.
So be
Yeah.
prepared to offer genuine apology. And then, but from that moment, conflict. You hurt me. I'm sorry. Move on. Figure out how to fix it. Say, okay, why was I so hurt by that? And then the other person should be asking themselves, where was my trauma that made me lash out in that way?
Mm.
Okay, now this, because the relationship doesn't have to be over at that point, right? Now it's an acknowledgement of I hurt you, I was hurt, I'm taking responsibility for my hurt, I'm taking responsibility for my action, doing the work internally on your own to make sure that you can rebuild that bond and move forward down that path. And that, I think, is where we get lost in the sauce of this existence, because my pain and my trauma and my hurt, it's the only thing that I can focus on. I use an example of when you think about you're talking to like a preteen or an early teenager, right? That 13, 14-year-old, and everything is like the end of the world, right? I have to remind myself that for them, this is the worst thing that has ever happened to them. That's probably a good thing. Drama at school among friends is the worst thing that's ever happened to a child. that child's living a beautiful, privileged life, right?
Yeah.
But this is the biggest thing that's ever happened to them. Now, you and I know in the grand scheme of this existence, not a big deal. They'll be friends in a week, get over it. But for them, it's the biggest thing that's ever happened to them. So what I try to do in communicating with people in my life is remember that they have hurt and they have trauma. And even though my intention was to serve myself because I put myself first, I still may have hurt somebody with an action, and I do have to take responsibility for that. But I don't have to be the villain in their story.
That's a good point. Yeah. When you become aware of that, take ownership of it. Say, hey, you know what? I know this made you feel that way, and it wasn't my intention. I'm sorry. And even if it was, I'm owning my shit. And, but I think that also doesn't mean that you have to feel shame and guilt to stay with that person.
No.
Yeah.
No shame, no guilt. Remember,
you're human
and you're going to make mistakes. And that's where, when you offer that apology and you offer it with genuine intent, hopefully it's received in the same way. If you offer that genuine apology and the person meets you with not good enough, you don't have anything else to offer. The decision at that point is no longer yours. If you offer genuine and intentful apology for an action that you did, and you say, I recognize this now, and I see how this hurt you, and I will work on this particular behavior. This is something I recognize now, and thank you for pointing that out. And they say your apology is not enough. The onus is no longer on you. And I would honestly recommend exiting yourself from that relationship, because what you're going to do if you continue to move forward is set yourself up to be punished. You are now their villain. You have now hurt them further. You have now further deepened the wound around that trauma. You didn't even know it existed. And yet you've done that because they themselves are not looking inward to figure out why that hurt so bad in the first place, and then to heal that wound. So no, the only onus and responsibility on you, you should never feel guilt, shame, or obligation. The only onus is to take responsibility for your actions. That's it. And then what you do to ensure you do not cause that same type of pain to somebody again in the future. That's when you find your community, your group, your therapist. That's when you go work with somebody who can help you identify where that came from that made you want to cause that pain.
Yes. Hurt people, right?
Hurt people. And we're all hurt.
And don't take it personal.
Oh my gosh. I have to remind myself all the time, like, this isn't about me, because you are the main character in your own movie. Yes. And I'm the main character in mine. It's never about the other person. It is always about you.
Yes.
Thank you
so much for saying that.
And think about how much happier your relationships can be. Now you don't have expectation or obligation. You're not attached to an outcome. Practice non-attachment. Let it be what it is presently without determining what it's going to be in the future. Live now and then just let it be.
I would even say attachment and expectations are probably the biggest downfall to entering in any relationship. It's the biggest hurdle that we unconsciously create, but we can change that. We can.
Because if you just let it be, then you're not tied to this outcome, and then it can evolve and it can grow.
Yeah. I feel like we could go on this for hours. I just love all this. I've got so many stories and situations and stuff we could dive into. Love the sex topic also. So I'd love to have you on again sometime. We can dive a little deeper into some of this.
Yeah, I'd love to.
But as a kind of a lightning round here, what if you could give something that someone could check out today that helped you, or was just like a really big light bulb went off, like a book, movie, show, something that somebody could check out today? What would that be?
Kind of putting me on the pressure with this one. Okay. Unfortunately, I had to go through this entirety of my journey without any assistance. That was the messaging that I received from my team and my guide. So I did this entirely on my own. what helped me in the beginning to calm my mind and focus my thoughts was a podcast on Spotify that I'm going to give you guys the name of right now. It's Willow Bend Zen.
Oh, love it.
Willow Bend Zen, and it's on Spotify and YouTube as well, whatever you prefer to consume that is. But it is guided meditations, lucid dreaming. It's a lot of sleep work. So I bought for myself on Amazon little like headband headphones. And I do every single night a guided sleep meditation or lucid dreaming or connecting in with higher self. I don't remember my dreams. And so for me, it's something that I'm trying to do to calm my system and hopefully settle into a dream state, if you will. I dive a little too deeply and then I'm kind of gone. And that's kind of where some of the spiritual stuff comes in. So Willow Bend Zen, and I cannot say enough about guided, focused meditations. Treat yourself to that. You don't have to do 4 hours of meditation. If all you can give yourself is 5 minutes of breath work and some rain sounds, do that. And then push yourself into 7, and then push yourself into 10, and try and get yourself up to 30 minutes of daily meditation. What that will do for you, it will allow you to look deeper within the core of yourself, to hear the truth of the situation. So when you ask yourself, why am I so bothered that I never hear from my boyfriend? Why am I so bothered by that? When you ask yourself that question and you're able to meditate on it, you will get these flashes of memories of maybe your first boyfriend not calling when he said he would, or abandonment as a child because an important family member died suddenly or left, or your parents got a divorce. We all have shit, right? Like whatever that is, it'll help you identify that and then heal that. And once you heal that, then when you call your boyfriend and you say, babe, I miss you. Can we talk more often? When you come in with that conversation instead of, you never call me. And it's really frustrating because I should be hearing from you. Which girlfriend do you want to call? Really? Do you want to call the ones like you never call? Or do you want to call the one that's like, babe, I miss you so much. What are you doing? Like, think about that. Right? And it allows you to address those issues in a way that lets you put yourself back into, how would I want to be approached with this? Would I want someone to come to me and be like, you never call, no, like, or would you want someone to be like, I miss you so much, let's talk more?
Yeah, but then don't beat yourself up over that other persona. It's be aware of it, and now you can do little things to make changes, which little meditations and consistency in that is more important than how long.
Yes, and in your routine as well. So like, exactly, just give yourself the opportunity. It's like, it's your me time, you know? Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, so guys, I am just loving all of this. Definitely look forward to seeing you in the future. We're going to put all of the links down below, so how you can reach out. And the name of your that you are a co-host on is Game of Love.
Game of Love with Jessica Smith. So that is the host of the show. She's amazing. She's also an international dating coach and wellness coach with a new program launching. She's phenomenal. Check out the show, Game of Love Show on Instagram if you want to follow the show page, and Game of Love on Spotify and Apple.
Yes, love it. So again, thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been such a great conversation. I think relationships is probably one of the biggest topics everyone should be talking about, especially in schools. Like, it's the apex of humanity is relationships.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about that. Talk about sex. Talk about things that are uncomfortable for people that you're told as a kid you shouldn't talk about. And let's have a good day, guys. Plug into your life, and we will see you next time.
Thank you so much.